subscribe and tap the bell. Twice a day, we bring you the real words of the Stoics, not paraphrased, not softened. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire that stretched from Britain to Syria, commanded armies on the Danube frontier, and buried more of his own children than he had years left to rule. In his private notebook, he describes a mental exercise for handling the weight of all of it, not by pushing the weight away, but by making himself briefly, deliberately small in front of it. Later scholars gave the exercise a name, the view from above. The instruction, translated by George Long, asks you to picture the world the way it looks from a great height. Thou hast seen these things. Look now at these. Do not disturb thyself, make thyself all simplicity. Marcus is describing a kind of mental altitude, pulling the imagination up and away from the room, the argument, the deadline, until a single human problem shrinks against the size of everything surrounding it. He runs the exercise on time as much as on distance. Elsewhere in the notebook he asks himself to hold, in view at once, the entire span of human history before him and the entire span still to come, and to notice how brief his own portion of it actually is against that scale. An emperor with more recorded power than almost anyone alive in his century, deliberately reminding himself, in writing, how small his allotted stretch of it really was. The exercise isn't meant to make anything feel meaningless. That's the trap people fall into the first time they try it, zoom out far enough, and everything looks equally pointless, so why bother with any of it? That's not what Marcus is doing. He zooms out to correct a distortion, not to erase the picture. Up close, a single insult, a single frustrating colleague, a single bad afternoon can occupy the entire field of attention, as if it were the only thing that existed. Pulled back to its actual size against a life, a century, a species, it's revealed as one part of something much larger, still real, still worth responding to well, just no longer the whole horizon. Seneca describes a version of the same widening in a letter to Lucilius, pointing outward across geography rather than time. He reminds his friend that Rome itself, which felt to most Romans like the fixed, permanent center of the world, was a small mark on a much larger map, and that every kingdom any person has ever lived under eventually shrinks to a footnote against the length of history. The point, for Seneca as much as for Marcus, was never to feel small in a discouraging sense. It was to feel accurately sized, neither the center of the universe, nor invisible within it, but a single ordinary part of something enormous, exactly like everyone else who has ever lived. Marcus pushes the exercise even further in places, imagining the sheer volume of ordinary human activity happening at any single moment across the empire: weddings, funerals, lawsuits, harvests, soldiers marching, children being born, all occurring at once, all feeling to the people inside them like the center of the world, all destined to be forgotten within a generation or two regardless of how they turn out. It's not a comforting image if you're looking for permanence. It is a genuinely useful one if what you actually needed was proportion. Your lawsuit is one of thousands running in parallel right now, in a world that has run millions of them before and will run millions more, nearly all completely forgotten by the people who weren't directly involved. This is close to the opposite of how attention tends to work by default, and it's worth naming the modern version of the distortion directly, since it's more common now than it was for a second-century emperor. A culture built around personal narrative, documenting the day, narrating the grievance, treating each private moment as content worth an audience, trains the opposite habit from the view from above. It trains a kind of permanent close-up, where every frustration is filmed at the distance it feels like, not the distance it actually occupies in anyone else's life, including your own a decade from now. Marcus never had a phone to make this worse. He still needed a deliberate exercise to fight the same basic distortion, which suggests the distortion isn't caused by the technology. The technology just gives it somewhere new to live. There's a practical version of this exercise you can actually run, not just read about. Picture your city from high enough up that the roads become lines and the buildings become blocks of grey and brown. Picture the country around it, then the coastline, then the curve of the planet holding all of it. Then reverse direction, imagine that same argument, that same deadline, from 10 years in the future, when most of the specific words exchanged today will already be forgotten by everyone involved, including you. Both directions do the same job. They put a single moment back inside the size of context it actually belongs to, instead of letting it fill the whole field of vision uncontested. Marcus needed this more than almost anyone in his century, because almost no one else's bad day carried the weight his did. A single decision of his could move armies, execute a governor, or start a war 3 provinces away. If anyone had grounds to treat his own perspective as the permanent center of the world, it was the man ruling most of the known one. He used the exercise anyway, nightly, in a notebook never meant for anyone else to read, which is a stronger argument for its usefulness than any essay written for an audience could be. The view from above doesn't remove the problem waiting for you back at ground level. The insult is still real. The deadline still exists. What changes is the size of the room it's allowed to occupy in your head, from the entire horizon, down to what it actually is, one ordinary event, among an almost uncountable number, in a life that was always going to contain more of them than you could count. Marcus never treats this as a one-time cure. He runs the exercise again and again across the notebook, on different nights, against different frustrations, because the distortion it corrects rebuilds itself by morning regardless of how clearly you saw through it the night before. That repetition is the actual method, not a failure of it. The view from above was never meant to be seen once and kept. It was meant to be climbed back up to, deliberately, every time the ground-level version of a problem started convincing you it was the only view that existed, a climb worth making again tomorrow, and the day after that, for as long as ground level keeps forgetting the lesson by morning. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We bring you Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and the Stoics they trained, straight from the source, twice a day.